Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video is another deep dive into the world of DevOps, and we are going to explore mastering Ansible with some real world automation scenarios. So whether you're a sysadmin, a DevOps engineer, or just someone looking to automate manual tasks, this video will help you truly understand what Ansible can do, not just in theory, but in the real world. Once again, before I start off with the session, if you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. And if you haven't, then you know what to do. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now, let's start off with this session, and we will start with a simple question: why automation? So, in the modern IT landscape, speed and consistency are everything. So, when you want to manage dozens or even thousands of systems, manual processes just won't scale, right? So, the amount of time you have to spend, the amount of resources that you need to spend is way too much. And with today's industry, that is not acceptable. So, this is where our superhero Ansible enters. So Ansible is a radically simple IT automation platform. It allows you to automate everything from individual tasks to entire application life cycles using human readable YAML files. Now, what are the key benefits of using Ansible? One, it is completely agentless. So you don't have to install any extra software on your managed node. So if you have like even thousands of machines, you don't have to install anything on those thousands of machines. Ansible uses SSH or WinRM to connect to those machines. Then it is idempotent. So you can run the tasks multiple times without causing unintended changes. So it will, even if you run the task 100 times, it will execute only once unless there is a change. The next benefit you have, it is declarative. You describe what you want and Ansible will figure out how to do it. So it does not matter in which order you write the tasks. Ansible will figure out what needs to be done. And it is cross platform. So you can automate Linux machines, you can automate Windows machines, cloud, network gear, containers, all from one tool. So let's say you are deploying updates to 2000 servers. Now you have two options. You can either SSH into each of these box manually, or you can simply set up an Ansible playbook and run that Ansible playbook that updates all the systems in parallel. So it could log your success or failures and automatically do a rollback if something fails, right? So that's basically how powerful your Ansible is. Now, let's dive into some practical ways of how Ansible is being used across organizations today. So the first usage you have for your Ansible is server provisioning. So imagine you are launching 10 new servers on AWS with Ansible. So you can install packages like Nginx or Python or any packages you want. You can set up your firewall rules. You can create users and assign SSH keys to these users. You can configure logging and monitoring agents as well. So let's look at an example for this. So here is my machine. So this is an EC2 instance I'm using, and I don't have Ansible at the moment. So you can say I don't have it, so I'm going to install it. Now before we install Ansible, we will need to update the machine. So let me go ahead and update the machine here. So my machine is updated and now we'll install our Ansible. So this will go ahead and install your Ansible. So I'm using Ubuntu AMI, so you should also be able to follow the same steps. Very straightforward. You can also follow the official page. I'm not doing that. This is simpler for me, so I'm just doing that to install the Ansible. So wait for the Ansible to complete, and then you should be able to validate your Ansible installation. And done. So now you can validate this Ansible ---- version, and we should be able to see our Ansible installed. So it's a prerequisite you will need to install. Now the second prerequisite is your authentication. Now because we will be setting up EC2 machines on AWS, so this Ansible machine needs to have the permission. So for this, I'm just going to attach a role that I already have. and this role has admin privileges, so you can also go ahead and do that. Now, we will be setting up a playbook for this. So let me create a directory here. So let's call this as Ansible. We will go to that and let's call this as EC2 provision.yaml. So we're using Ansible playbook over here. We'll talk more about your playbook in some time. So here is the example playbook I have. I'll be sharing the link to this in the description section. So just to give you an overview, so we are executing it on the local host. We are setting the region. So these are all the variables that I'm setting. So the region, instance type, AMI, key pair, security groups, how many instances, and the tags. And this is where we are launching the instances. So it uses this module, and then all the variables that are passed over here, we are calling those variables over here. So I'll take this, I'll have it here, and let's save this, and we will execute this playbook. So the command for that would be Ansible-playbook, and then EC2 provision. Sorry, there's a typo. And this will go ahead and launch the EC2 instances. Okay, so there seems to be an issue on the AWS side. So you can see here, so it says, we do not have sufficient T2.micro capacity in the availability zone. So could be a temporary issue. So I'm just going to try this once again to see if we can launch our EC2 instances. But again, this is nothing to do with the playbook, with the script. This is an issue on the AWS side. So I'm still getting that. So what I'll do is we will change the instance type. So I'm changing the instance type to t2.small. Now please remember, you may get charged if you're trying this. t2.micro is free, but t2.small is chargeable. And now let's try this once again, and this should go ahead and launch the EC2 instances for us. Okay, so you can see this is done. So now if I go and refresh, I should be able to see 2 new instances, and you can see this is initializing, and this is basically the tags. All right, so that's one way of how we can use your Ansible, which is your server provisioning. So you can also configure this, but I've just shown you an example of how you can provision your servers as well. So you can just define your desired state once, and then Ansible will handle the rest of the things for you. So this is an example of how we can provision your servers using Ansible playbooks. The next practical way to use Ansible is configuration management. So configuration drift is real, right? So different versions of files on different servers can break your application. So with Ansible, you can ensure consistency across your entire infrastructure. Could be your SSHD config file or your Nginx configuration file, could be anything. So every server will get the same exact configuration, and Ansible only will update if the configuration file has changed thanks to its idempotency. All right, so let me show you an example for this. So here in the GitHub, I should have another playbook. So this is what I have for the configuration management. So as part of the configuration management, so I'm updating the packages on the remote machines. I'm setting up Nginx. I'm starting the Nginx service. I'm installing Docker, and then I am starting the Docker service. So I'm configuring my remote machines based on my requirements. Now, I will need to set up the authentication for the remote machines. So here, so this would be config demo.yaml. Now, if you look at this particular section, so this is where I'm defining as to where this playbook needs to be executed. So I'm telling that this needs to execute on all the machines. So what we will do is, as an example, we will configure these 2 machines. Now, to configure these 2 machines, I will need to set up the authentication. So how do we do that is we will need to create something known as a inventory file. So let's call it as hosts, and then we will need to provide the server address. So this is one, and this is the other one, and then Ansible underscore user would be Ubuntu because I'm using Ubuntu AMI, and then the authentication. So it would be Ansible underscore SSH underscore private key file, and then the path where the PEM file would be available to authenticate to these machines. So in my case, this is where I will be keeping it, and I'll do the same thing for the second machine as well. So this will be the inventory file or your host file. So whenever you want your playbooks to execute on remote machines, we make use of this inventory file or your host file to provide the details of your remote machines. I'll talk more about that in some time. Now the second thing is I will need to have the PEM file available here. So I'll quickly copy the PEM file here. So I have the PEM file over here, and we will set this to read permissions only. Now, so this is my authentication. Now we will need to validate this if my Ansible is able to talk to this machine. So for that, we can use this Ansible all -i your inventory file and then -m ping. So I'm telling my Ansible to ping these machines and see if you're able to talk to the machines or not. So there are two machines. So this is one machine and this is the second machine. So I did a ping and I got a Pong response. So that means my Ansible is able to talk to the remote machines successfully. So once again, I'm telling Ansible to hit all the machines which are available in my inventory file, and I'm telling it to use a module ping. So ping is a module which I'm using to basically check the connectivity to the machines. So now that the connectivity is working, let's execute this particular playbook so that we are able to configure our remote machines. Now in this case, I will need to pass the inventory file because I'm doing something on the remote machines, right? So, and then we will say config demo. So you can see first it is trying to check if it is able to connect to the remote machines or not. So it is okay. So whatever you have defined in your playbook, sure. So update all packages. So that is what it is doing for us. So on both the machines, it is doing an update for us. Then it will install Nginx. Then it will start the service. Then it will install Docker. Then it will start the Docker service. So it will configure all these things for me. So let's wait for this playbook to complete. It will take some time. All right, so it took some time, but you can see here my playbook has completed. So update the packages, install Nginx, ensure service is running, install Docker, ensure Docker is running. So this is completed. Now you can validate this. So here is one of the servers that I have. So this is 13.126.30.188, which is this particular server. And you can check for your Nginx. Let me see, let me just hit Nginx. Okay, so you can see I'm able to see my Nginx. Likewise, I should be able to see my Docker as well. And you should also be able to see the status of this. Service Docker status, and you can see this is running 54 seconds ago. Likewise, I should have my Nginx as well. So 1 minute 44 seconds. So a simple example of how we can use Ansible to configure our remote machine. So you can do whatever you want, install anything, configure anything, whatever you want, you can do it. The third practical way of using Ansible is your application deployment. So application deployment is one of the most powerful Ansible use case. So for this, you can pull the latest code from your Git repository. You can install dependencies. You can configure environment variables. You can start or restart services. You can run database migrations, and all using a structured, repeatable process. So as an example, we will deploy a simple Python application using Ansible. And for that, I have a separate repo that I will be using. So this is the repo that I will be using. Basically, the application itself, this is where I have it. And the playbook for that would be in the same Ansible repo. So I think not here, sorry. So this is where I have it. Yeah, so this is the playbook that we are going to use to deploy our application. So we are deploying a Flask application, we are setting some variables, we are installing few dependencies, we are creating an application user, we will clone our Git repository, we will install the Python requirements, we will set up the system D service, and then we will be restarting our Flask application. So that is basically what we are doing here, and this is dependent on the this particular repo where we have the source code, the application code itself. So let me copy this, and let's create app.yaml. So this is the playbook, and I just need to change this to all, and make sure you have the right repo. So this is what I want to use, and then we will save this. There's one more thing that we will need, which is this particular file, flask underscore app.service.j2. Now that is what we are using to set up our services. So you have that file over here. So let me copy this name, and we will have that here, and we will have this code as well. So let me save that. So we will need this on the Ansible machine. So we have the playbook and we have this particular file, and that's all. Now all we have to do is trigger this playbook. So this playbook will automatically get the code from our GitHub repository. I'll share the link to this in the description. You can take it from there. So let's go ahead and trigger our playbook. So flask.yaml. So this is an example for deploying a application on your remote machines using Ansible. So it's a very simple application, but goes to show you how powerful Ansible can be, different use cases of how we can use your Ansible. So let's wait for this to complete. Okay, so you can see this is completed. So gathering facts, install dependencies, create the app user, clone the repo, install the requirements, set up the systemd, and then restart the services. So if you look at the remote machine, so this is where we are deploying the application. Now all we have to do is hit the application. So this application, this runs on port 5000. So make sure in your security group you're allowing 4000. So I will take the server IP, and we will try hitting this on port 5000, and I should be able to see the application. Right now, at any point you update your application. So let's say I will update my index.html file. I can easily deploy that using my so was deployed channel. So I will commit this, and we will just have to go ahead and run the playbook. That's all. Obviously, you can automate this so that whenever we make changes to the GitHub, it will automatically trigger the playbook. We can do that as well, but that's for another session. But this will go ahead and deploy my application. So now if I refresh this, I should be able to see. Okay. So did we restart? Oh, the service is not restarted for some reason. Hold on, I think I have to make a small change. And what needs to be done? So I just need to put this as well in my repo, so that whenever there is a change on the repo, it should restart the service. And now for this to work, I'll have to make the change once again. Sorry about that. So let me just copy this and just have this once again. And now we'll run the playbook. Yeah. So I have changes in the repo, so my service should be restarted. And now if I refresh this, I should be able to see the updated one. So you can do that as well. So the only change we have is this particular line should be there over here as well. All right, so that's for your application deployment. All right, so a very simple example. Now let's dive deeper into Ansible and look at what actually powers all this automation, which is your playbook. So what exactly is a playbook? So a playbook is a YAML file that tells Ansible what tasks to run, in what order, and on which host machines the task needs to run. For example, so this particular playbook. So on which machines the task needs to run? What are the tasks that we want to run? In which order the task needs to run? So all this information goes into your playbook. Now, in addition to this, you have few more things like variables. So if you want to make your playbooks dynamics and reusable, we make use of your variables. You can also make use of your roles, which is a little advanced concept of your Ansible. So we can use roles to organize code into folders with defaults, tasks, templates, and handlers. And then you can use your handlers as well, which can be used to trigger actions only when something changes. Like for our example, as part of this application deployment, we have used handlers to restart. So here we are using handlers. So to restart our application whenever we are updating our code. So we use this notify and handlers. They go together to basically trigger certain actions. So in a real world scenario, you can break, so let's say you have a LAMP application, you can break this into a MySQL role, an Apache role, and a PHP role. So your MySQL is where you'll set your root password, you'll be creating your DBs. Apache role is where you'll be creating your virtual host, and PHP role is where you'll be installing your modules. And then you can call all of these roles into your main playbook. This is just an example. So basically, you can break down your playbooks into smaller sections, and then you can start calling them together. So if you have a very complex playbooks, a recommendation is to break them down into smaller tasks and then call them. So which is basically using your roles. Now that you have understood the basics, let's go deeper into advanced Ansible use case. So the first thing we will talk about is your inventory management. So this is where we have your inventory file or your host file. So Ansible needs to know where it needs to run the tasks, and this is where inventories come in. So we have two types of inventories. We have the static inventory, and then we have the dynamic inventory. Now the one that you see here, this is your static inventory. So I've just given the remote machines IP addresses and then how to connect to them. But you also have a dynamic inventory which can be used in case of cloud environment like AWS. Then you have your modules and plugins. So Ansible is modular. So anything that you do with Ansible, it all comes down to your modules. So it ships with thousands of modules for everything from system packages to Kubernetes, Docker, and cloud resources. For example, so here this is a module, apt user is a module, git is a module, pip is a module. So anything that you're doing in Ansible, it comes down to your modules. So you have apt and yum, which can be your package managers. You have ec2, gcp underscore compute for your cloud resources, docker container for managing your docker, win shell and win package for windows automation. So everything comes down to your modules. So you also have plugins enhance functionality. So you have connection plugins like SSH, WinRM, Docker, callback plugins like your custom output, and then lookup plugins which can be used to fetch vault secrets. Now let's talk a bit about troubleshooting and debugging. So when things go wrong, Ansible gives you tools that you can use to debug and fix the issues faster. So one option you have is using this hyphen VVV, which is your verbose output. So when you're executing your playbook, so whenever you're executing your playbook, you can use this hyphen VVV, which is your verbose output, basically a detailed output to see what is happening, like your connection, creating the users and everything. So you can see here, establish SSH connection for user, and become success and all those details. Then you can also use hyphen check, which is a dry run mode. So at any point, if you just want to test your playbook without making any changes on the remote machine, then you can use this hyphen check, which is your dry run mode. So in this case, what happens is Ansible will not execute anything on the remote machine, but it will only show you what exactly it will do if you actually executed them on the remote machine. Then you have hyphen start a task, which can be used to resume your playbook from a failed step. So let's say, for example, within your playbook, your playbook failed at this step. Now it's not necessary that you have to start the playbook again from the beginning. You can trigger the playbook from this particular step as well. That's where we can use start a task. And then the last you have is step. So this can be used for your step-by-step execution. So each step, it will stop and it will ask like, do you want to execute it or not? So for example, I can use hyphen step. So in this case, it will ask like, hey, do you want me to gather the facts? So if I say no, it will skip that particular step and go to the next step, which is install dependency. So if I say why, then it will go ahead and install the dependencies for me. I'm getting an error. I'm going to ignore that. This could be because of the gathering facts. I'm going to ignore that, but I hope you get the idea. The other things that you'll have to keep in mind is always check your YAML syntax. So Ansible playbook uses YAML, and YAML can be very tricky if you don't follow these standards like your indentations, your colons, and everything. Then variable precedence. So make sure you're defining your variables properly and following the order. And then your inventory issues. So make sure your inventory file is defined properly. You have the right IP address or your FQDN and all. So Ansible is more than just a tool. It's an ecosystem. And to master it, you need practice and community. So practice with projects like, for example, this is a application that you can try out with. It's a small project that you can try out with. So start small, then scale, right? So example, automate your laptop setup, or set up a 3-node Kubernetes cluster with Ansible, or manage your AWS infrastructure, like setting up EC2 machines or RDS or VPC using Ansible. Then keep learning. So stay updated with latest features like Ansible collections, automation controller, event-driven Ansible, and those sort of things. That's all I have for this session. Thank you for joining this session. I hope this video gave you some insights and confidence to start automating smarter, faster, and more reliably. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more cloud content. Drop your questions in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.